Hello, neighbor. Rosie Zepeda here with Fiscally Responsible Common Sense Policy on Housing. So I'm not going to get into the details as to why our housing is being rigged, because it is. But what I do want to talk about are solutions, immediate solutions on how we can alleviate this crisis, because it is a crisis. First things first, building takes time. It takes permits. It just takes a long time to build. Some other candidates have proposed, oh, let's just build more and more. Well, the reality is that if we can build, but we have to be very conscious and may have certain requirements for building, because otherwise, whatever you build is just going to get bought right out of the market by people who actually have a lot of money, and it won't resolve the issue for working families. So here are some of my solutions so that working families made up of teachers, made up of counselors, police officers, the people who provide really important services to building our communities can stay here as opposed to traveling 3 hours, to come and work here. Immediately, we can offer, they've been called granny units, but I have my spin on this. It will basically be faster to allow for people who have really big lots, if they want to put a prefabricated home in the back. I've already had this discussion with many of you who are retired. Some of you love this idea because then some of you said, well, I can move into the prefabricated home in the back and then, just rent the house in the front. And we wouldn't have to deal with building codes or deal with just the time that it takes to build. There's so many doors that I have knocked where you have 2 to 3 families of different generations living in one house because they can't afford to buy a place, or they can't even afford to rent a place. The average brand new 1-bedroom apartment in San Jose, brand new, of 700 square feet is going for $3,500, which is absolutely ridiculous. So that's one solution: prefabricated home in larger lots, and of course, the devil is in the details. We can go ahead and then talk about what would be the fee that would be paid to the city and whatnot, and how would those details work out. But it would cut a lot of the time of construction. And now let's talk about construction. So we are giving waivers to developers on fees. There's a project taking place over in Winchester. There's some housing that's going to go up, which is very common now as a mixed use. And that developer there got like $34 million waived in impact fees. So if we're going to do that, we actually need to get something back, and we need to require something back. If developers are going to get any type of waivers, whether they're impact fees or whatever they are, then we need to require that if they're going to sell those units, or those units are going to be for rental, that they need to actually provide those at a lower amount. So how can we do this and then work with developers? Of course, developers are there to make money. So I propose a very temporary moratorium on impact fees for developers who want to work with the city. What does this look like? So if a developer is going to build something to sell, it costs 700 to 800 square foot, to build, and that's what skyrockets the amount of what it gets sold to. Then if they're going to get anything from us, then we would lower that amount to $200 to $300 a square foot, and then that unit or that home would get sold for less. But then we would need to require, either we make a lottery system, or we need to require that certain types of populations, let's say teachers, police officers, get priority in order to live in this housing. Quite honestly, as a former teacher, I can tell you that I didn't go into it for the money, and most people who stay in teaching, really have a passion, for teaching. So I have a very soft spot for teachers, and I think it's imperative that our children grow up with knowing their teachers live in the same city. And the other solution also is we have 2 tall buildings going up in downtown San Jose, and as far as rentals are concerned, some other urban cities already do this and already require their developers to do this. In New York City, for example, any building that goes up, 1/3 of the units of that entire building are reserved for people who make $50,000 or less. This would also include our teachers. This would also include counselors. I mean, the people who actually, keep our community together, and would give an opportunity for working families to be able to stay in the city as opposed to having to be forced out or move out. So those are some of my solutions for resolving and having affordable housing. This is Rosie Zepeda with Fiscally Responsible Common Sense Policy. Thank you.